Welcome to episode 16 of the Everyday Sens podcast. I'm Jack Richardson, joined by Brennan Parks. And Brennan, this is our first episode ever with a new owner of the Ottawa Senators. We obviously started a couple of months ago. And first, before we get going, I want to thank everyone on YouTube. We just hit 400 subscribers. And again, it's only been about 2 months since we've been doing this. So it's awesome for us. We're thrilled with that. We want to thank everyone for the support. But again, we started the podcast kind of speculating about new ownership, knowing it would wrap up in the near future, we thought. Been 2 months, but this is officially episode 16. Michael Landlauer is the owner of the Ottawa Senators. So just how are you feeling? And we're doing this on a Saturday, June 17th, instead of a Friday like usual.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I mean, it's exciting. This is finally wrapping up. It's still going to be a little bit before we have, verification, I guess you could say, because things aren't expected to the dust isn't expected to settle until closer to September. But still, I think, we started the podcast. I think our first episode was April 24th. And at that time, we thought maybe by like early May, ownership, or even that week that we started, ownership would be wrapped up. And we would, at this point, like we're on June 17th, we'd thought maybe, we'd be talking about a DeBrincat extension or a trade, or we'd be like, things would be settled and they'd be able to actually do things in the organization. Unfortunately, we're not there. Like, it's just still going to be a bit, but I think we have to be optimistic about it. We got a new owner, right? Like, it's officially a new era. And yeah, we had that bonus episode that we posted, but that was actually recorded like a month ago or maybe even more, when the first report came out about Andlauer. So this is our first time talking about it. We're going to dive into the details of the sale, and then we're going to just kind of share more thoughts. Like, I know we talked about it in that bonus video, but we haven't really shared our thoughts about the details or, the price and who's involved and everything we know so far. So if you want to share some of that or get into it, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, for sure. So the details are that we've alluded to the whole time new owners, plural, right? And just with all these groups that were rumored, and the Kimmels were two people with a lot of partners. And while there are a lot of partners involved in this is a 90% stake for Michael Andlauer, with the Melnick estate and Anna and Olivia holding 10%. So we can get into that in a little bit, because I'm a big fan of that aspect of it. But for Michael Andlauer, he's bringing in a group of, I believe, 20 local investors headed by a farm boy partner. He's not the CEO, co-CEO anymore, but he's the partner of Farm Boy, and the Malhotra family from Claridge Homes. So again, like two very, I'd say Farm Boy is a bit bigger than local now, but it did start here in Ottawa. The headquarters are actually like just a couple blocks away from where I live, and I think that's great. And we've speculated a lot. I have specifically about a new arena in the event. We could also get into that, maybe another episode, just all the stuff that Mark Sutcliffe's been saying about a location, maybe not LeBreton Flats, but the Farm Boy Center has a nice ring to it, or the Farm Boy Arena, or whatever you want to call it. That'd be pretty cool. But like initial reaction from me, the best thing is, and I know that it's on Twitter again today, like no one in the league has anything bad to say about Michael Andlauer, and what a change of pace that is from what we had. And he's been tabbed as the boring choice, I think. Just in terms of what we could have had celebrities, right? There were three different groups with three A-list celebrities, and they elected to go with Michael Andlauer, who has the hockey ties. He's from Canada. To me, that's what we needed. And I think if you took a look at this when it went up for sale before Ryan Reynolds was involved, if you knew that Michael Andlauer was going to be the owner, I think everyone would have taken that 10 out of 10 times. Not that anyone's disappointed with this now, but just that it might be a bit bittersweet knowing what we could have had, like a documentary with Reynolds. And I know you specifically have been, you were down earlier when Reynolds backed out and stuff. And I'm curious if you think this is still just such a win for the organization, even if it took so long and it's maybe not as flashy as it could have been.
Oh, I definitely think it's a win. I've been big on Andlauer too. Like, I remember we talked about it and a while back, and the way we put it was like, yeah, if you asked Sens fans before Reynolds got involved, if you asked them what they wanted in ownership, they would have described Michael Andlauer, which is just stability and funding and someone who cares about the team on the ice. And I do have a little list of just details that I managed to pull out of like multiple articles and different things, because there's so many little intricacies of this sale. And one of the big things though was that Andlauer really values the on-ice performance of the team. Like, he's someone who wants to win a championship. And I thought that was interesting because a lot of the other groups, almost every other group, not that they didn't want to build a champion, that's kind of a standard ownership type thing you'd say, but they had a lot of interest in the real estate, and that's not a bad thing. You want a new arena, but I think a lot of them were more focused on maybe expanding that and using the land at the CTC and making money off that. And of course, Andlauer has that desire too. But I think like he stands out to me in regards to how he wants to win a championship because he's done it at the OHL and AHL levels as well, and he's proven that he can build a champion. So to me, his desire to prioritize the on ice aspects of the team, I find very exciting. And I know it's been reported too that he wants to expand the front office to match other groups. I think it was Ian Mendes said other rivals around the league, which is like pretty exciting because we're talking about Toronto, for example, has a huge, obviously a massive front office group and a lot of like analytic people, a lot of scouting people. I know Ian pointed out specifically analytic and pro scouting is areas where Andlauer wants to expand. So that was obviously one of our top priorities with new ownership was expand that front office. And it sounds like he's prepared to put money into that and serious money. So that's awesome to hear. He has to sell his 10% share of the Habs before I think kind of being able to do much with Ottawa. He has to get rid of that because it's just kind of a conflict of interest. That should be happening soon. The sale too was $950 million in total. And yeah, the Jeff York thing and then 20 plus local investors. Awesome to see that. That's one of my big reactions as well, is having the local group as well. It just helps Andlauer kind of integrate. Like it makes his group more personable than I think any other group would have been to Ottawa specifically, which is a huge thing. That's another big thing that we wanted to hear was that we're going to have local backing on this, right? So, and then yeah, just a few more things. I know Bayview Yards was another mention of a potential arena location they were looking at. The Alinea Group is also involved, who are developers from Burlington, I think. So that could be another real estate type play. And then I think it's been rumored that he has a big role for alumni like Alfredson and Phillips and different guys in the hockey ops side of things. So that'll be awesome. Of course, Joe McGinley just came in as a, I don't know what his role was in Calgary, but he got hired by the Flames as like some sort of special advisor, which is awesome to see. It's kind of what I see for Alfie too. Do you have any specifics on that?
I was just gonna add in, yeah, special assistant, or
Yeah.
like kind of what Spezza was, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's essentially what Alfie should be, I
Yeah,
hope.
and that's awesome to see. I know Flames fans were kind of in the same boat with Iginla as we are with Alfie, where it's like, just get him back involved. We don't care as what, just get him involved, right? He wants to be here. And then, yeah, I know Bruce Garriock also said he unfortunately doesn't expect any changes soon. He's kind of been on the boat of Dorian Smith will just stay for next season because of the timeline. I still don't really understand this. I know some people on Twitter are like very adamant that they understand it, but it's so confusing. Like, can Andlauer just operate through the Melnyks once he sells a share of the Habs or whatever? Or is it really going to have to wait until September when everything's settled? Because at that point, it's pretty late to replace the staff, which means that Dorian Smith would get free job security. But I don't know.
Well, so that's why I imagine that most of the groups were frustrated, and it was reported that Andlauer was ready to back out if it wasn't finalized in the coming days or whatever. And I think that matters, and that's they're probably upset that it took so long because they probably wanted to get their hands on this before the off season. And again, Andlauer is a hockey guy; he understands that the full swing is in effect now. I think still, and it might be a little unorthodox. I still think you could get away with hiring a new coach right now and getting rid of DJ Smith. Wouldn't be great for Smith himself, right? But I mean, he's got a contract for next season. Like he'll get paid. Is the point? And I know what you mean. Like on paper, it seems pretty simple. It's like, why can't you just kind of through the Melnick estate, just let Andlauer be like, I want to do this, so please can you do that, like in good faith, essentially, right? Like get rid of a GM. I don't know, like, but to me, like we'll get into it in a little bit here with DeBrincat talks, but the ownership, there's two angles to this for me, right? I think the long term future of the club just took a massive, like, this is a huge win for that. Not that it was in doubt with any ownership. I think it would have been a bonus either way, just with how much they sold for and the plans that each individual one had. But then there's the short term stuff, and we'll get into that with Alex DeBrincat obviously in a little bit. But just first, like with Andlauer, like he's moving to Ottawa. It was also reported, and that's not necessary, but it's important. And I know a couple episodes ago, at least, I mentioned I had a friend who lives in Hamilton and was just asking about what's the vibe with that kind of owner, right? It's a small team, so you'd imagine there's kind of some kind of relationship, I'd say, with the fans and the owner. And not that I was thinking there would be, but he said, I don't know much about him. And but all he knows is that they win. And to me, that's all that matters right now. We've had some dreadful years here. I want to mention quickly, and we haven't really talked since the cup was handed out on Tuesday night for the Vegas Golden Knights. Look, the way the Golden Knights have gone about the last 6 years, and it's a little bit poetic that the Sens haven't made the playoffs in 6 years, and the Golden Knights have won a cup and been in existence in all of 6 years. Um, Bill Foley, the owner of the Vegas Golden Knights, I think he said in his introductory press conference, he said, "We'll make playoffs in 3 years and a cup in 6 years." And they won the cup in their sixth season, which is pretty impressive, and obviously made the playoffs way before that. But I think they've changed the mold of how to approach building a hockey team. Like they've been cutthroat. They've gotten rid of guys who they probably could have done okay with. They had Marc-Andre Fleury, who it sounded like with the Alan Walsh tweets with the sword in the back. Like they, by all accounts, they were a cutthroat organization, not really one that you would say players like in the sense that they didn't treat their guys right, if that makes sense. They kind of like Max Pacioretty, they just shipped them away last summer like it was nothing. And to me, I think that's the standard that the Sens need to take. It's like not to cut ties with guys you've committed all this stuff to, but like if you don't have success, like the Golden Knights missed the playoffs last season for the first time ever, and it was their only time, and they changed a lot of stuff in the summer. It's like that's the kind of standard we need to hold the Sens to, and it just hasn't been there for the last decade, or plus, honestly, like since 2008. I would say like 15 years. The standard in Ottawa has been mediocre. So all that to say, I'm excited because it does sound like Andlauer likes to win, wants to win, which I know everyone's going to say, but he's got the proof in the pudding. He's done it in hockey before. What One last thing that I love about him that I think is very unique in any sale. He's had a seat at the table of the board of governors. You mentioned he held a 10% stake in the Montreal Canadiens. I believe he was their representative at all the board of governor meetings in Florida when all the owners would go down and or whatever, or even if they are in Florida, I don't know. That's huge. He's got a relationship with the other owners in the league, with Gary Bettman. I'd imagine that had a huge impact on why they chose him, and I like that a lot because like we know Eugene Melnick's relationship with everyone was rocky. So this is just another win, and it's an added bonus that he's already got familiarity with the league.
Yeah, and he has, and he took over like as part owner of the Canadiens in 2009. So it's been a long relationship. Like they've known each other for a long, long time. I think Garrett or Bettman, sorry, is very, very like he likes Andlauer a lot. He thinks he's going to be a great owner, which I don't care really what Bettman says anymore. But I mean, it's good. Like it means that it's going to have a working relationship between the Ottawa Senators and the NHL, which is awesome to see, and other teams around the league as well, because obviously a lot of bridges locally and in the league and pretty much everywhere got burned under Melnick, unfortunately. And I hate to say that now, but it's the truth. Is a lot of bridges got burned. A lot of relationships went sour. And now the Sens have a chance to kind of rebuild their position as a serious team and a respectful team. So that was really interesting what you said about Vegas, because I just went and I looked up, like they made the playoffs. So Pete DeBoer came in as coach, and he coached for 3 seasons, and they made the playoffs in every year. And the first year that they missed the playoffs, they fired him like right away, even though he had a record with Vegas of 98, 50, and 12. And in the playoffs, he was 22 and 17. So a positive record on both the playoffs and the regular season, and the regular season by far. And they missed the playoffs one time, and he's out the door. And they hired Andrew, God, I'm blanking. Is it Bruce Cassidy? Yeah, Bruce Cassidy. I'm totally blanking. And he won the cup right away, and that's awesome to see. But like, it just shows you that expectations are there to be firm, right? It's a matter of holding accountability and meaning that as an owner, right, it's your responsibility to make sure this team is successful and to kind of like state your expectations to the group, because Dorian Smith, if they do stay, should know that they are on a short leash entering next season, and that even if you're here, we're not going to accept a season of failure. Like if you guys are not delivering, you're going to be fired. It's nothing personal, but that's how a job works, and that's how the NHL works, is like you're told what you have to do, and if you're not doing it, you're fired. And the fact that both of them are the 7th longest tenured in their position, like that's pretty telling of, they haven't made the playoffs in 6 years, right? So it's like, I mean, were they ever going to be fired under Melnick? It doesn't feel like it, but I don't know. I think Andlauer's the type of guy who knows what it takes to win, and he's not going to be afraid to replace people. And I think, like, from everything we've seen, it seems like he wants to replace people already. Like, I know the Steve Stais stuff, we've talked about it, but it seems pretty legit that he wants to bring Steve Stais in, whether it's as GM or president of hockey ops or an advisor to the GM, I don't know, but it seems like that's something that's probably going to happen either now, next summer, later this summer, I don't know, but that's something to definitely watch. And I think, too, the coaching thing, like, we said this, I think, in our first episode, and I said this, is how does a new owner come in, look at what Pierre and DJ have done, and yeah, the core looks great and everything, but they're coming in and looking at the numbers, the stats, the facts. Like, what are the facts? What have you guys accomplished? Why are you in the top 10 longest tenured in your position, right? There's nothing impressive about it. Like, I look at Dorion's stats, I look at DJ's stats, and there's nothing impressive about it. To me, that just screams like I'm ready to be replaced because they haven't achieved anything yet. So I know they've been a rebuilder. I know there are people who will stand by them until the day they walk out the door, and that's fine. I like them as people. It's just, I think, like you say, it's time for a fresh voice and something that can kind of push the team to the next level. So, Andlauer, to me, massive win. I know I like the Kimmels. I liked Ryan Reynolds. I liked all of it, but at the same time, Andlauer was always up there too. He's someone who, he delivers a lot of promise. He delivers a lot of promise to build a champion on the ice, and that's something that we can't undervalue because it's, prioritizing that and being able to fund the on-ice hockey team, make them a salary cap team, don't have an internal budget. That's going to be awesome to watch and a pleasure. So I'm excited to get this thing finalized. I know we've got the DeBrincat stuff to talk about because that's, could be in the next couple weeks here with the draft coming up. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty much set on Andlauer.
Yeah, just one more last thing with him, and I'll mention Ryan Reynolds as well. I think if Reynolds took over, it would have been great. It would have been so much exposure. It would have been, like just would have done great things for the brand of the Ottawa Senators. I just would have been skeptical, and I was at the time when he was rumored and the front runner or whatever. I was skeptical of the what he was going to do. He was going to be the majority owner. He was going to be the guy making the call. I believe he was going to be the guy. And I'm not doubting the guy's knowledge of hockey, but it's like it's hard to know until he does it. And I like that Andlauer's done it, and even the Kimmels, they were with Pittsburgh. Like it's hard to. I guess it's. I know that I would have trusted him to put the right people in place, but look, man. I mean, Pierre Dorion's kept a job for 7 years and they haven't made the playoffs in 6. Like he's saying the right things to someone, right? He fooled someone. So like it doesn't take much in like a quick meeting to be like, yeah, I've got this great plan, and then all of a sudden we're 4 years down the line and it's a gong show again. So anyway,
Well, just
I
one more thing on that too on Reynolds is I was listening back to one of the episodes there recently, and you said, like, I think a lot of us have expected Reynolds to come to every game, but in reality, that probably wouldn't happen because he's got movies, he's got other stuff he's doing, right? So as much as the
he's
Sens,
filming Deadpool 3, like he's
exactly,
busy.
as much as the Sens should be a priority to him, it might not be just because he's got so many things on his plate. And of course, he would have been around, but like, is he going to move to Ottawa like Andlauer? Probably not. He's got too many things going on. He lives in LA. Like, he's got a lot of stuff to do. So I think there would have been a lot of exciting things with Reynolds, but at the same time, would he have had the commitment to Ottawa like Andlauer does? I mean, just the fact that he's willing to move his entire life here and basically, like, you said this too, Michael Andlauer's life is now going to be the Ottawa Senators. Like, that's his life now. That is the number one thing on his plate that he's going to put all of his time into, basically, or most of his time. 90% of his time. Like, that's going to be his goal, and his goal is to just build a winner with the Senators. It's not to make money in Hollywood. It's not to run Wrexham AFC. It's to build a champion in Ottawa. So I think you said that perfectly a few episodes ago, and that popped back into my mind when we're talking about Reynolds. But I think Andlauer is just the most committed compared to a Ryan Reynolds.
That's what I like so much about Andlauer too, is he's in his statement. I think he said, I'm committed to like the city, and I want to get to know the community, and community was italicized. And that gave me chills. Like it was nice to read. So let's transition into DeBrincat. Okay. I mentioned the long-term success of the team is in good hands now. Short term, there's a lot to take care of, and we unfortunately, if maybe fortunately, unfortunately, we got to trust Pierre Dorion for it. Um, so I want to start this DeBrincat thing by saying I don't know what to think anymore because I the saga, I guess we could call it, that's going on. All we had was Bruce Garriock, right? And again, I'm going to absolutely credit the hell out of Bruce for the ownership coverage because just I can't imagine, like, as a fan not knowing anything. It was infuriating. I can't imagine trying to chase things down and get information and try and put out a new piece every day. How that would have been, and he was great. He was all over all of that, so good for him. But with the DeBrincat stuff, that is coming directly from the team. And if anyone is listening and doesn't think so, that's been the case forever, and that's what Garriock has. And good for him for reporting it because it's information. So it's not. I don't like anyone attacking, I guess, the integrity, like the journalistic integrity of him because he's doing that. But like, it's a source and he's got it, so he's going to put it out. But that's why I just have such a bone to pick with Pierre Dorion and the way he goes about with the media and stuff. And he used to his big quote all the time was, "We don't negotiate through the media." That's what I tweeted out the other day because that's exactly what's happening right now. Because Steve Warren with the Hockey News has had a couple pieces on DeBrincat with his price, and basically essentially just saying if the money's right, DeBrincat will stay. And here's the quote that Steve had last night, and it says there, "Alex is different. He isn't your typical star. He's beyond humble. Like I said, he's happy in Ottawa and would be happy to stay, but he's going to do what the people he trusts tell him to do." This was from a source close to his family who had previously said he likes the coach and he likes his teammates. And the reason I'm mentioning all the reports is it came out, DeBrincat doesn't want to commit long term, and then Steve's came out like a couple of days later, being like, we want to, he likes the coach and he likes the team. He likes it a lot here. He just needs to get this contract right. And then Bruce again comes out. He doesn't want to play in Canada. And then that snowballed a lot, and that picked up trade talk. And then they file for arbitration, which we've speculated about. Not as big of a deal as we think. It just makes sense financially for them to do it at this point. And then Steve comes out with the contractors has to be right. He, wants to bet on himself if they don't give him the right price, blah, blah, blah. So all of this to say is, once again, last night, we were going to prep for this podcast. And last night I was expecting to come on here and let's start talking about trades. And then this piece from Steve Warren comes out on a Friday night and I'm like, oh, okay, now I don't know. So where are you at with all of this? Because I know we're both on the train of keeping him, even if it's a 1-year deal. I don't care about the assets you might get back because they got to win next season. So where are you at with all these reports that we don't really know anything about, except for the arbitration thing? That is in stone. They have filed for arbitration. The deadline was on Thursday.
Yeah, I'm still just lost here because I'm not lost. Like, I understand what's happening. And again, sort of like the ownership thing, I know some people feel like it's just posturing by DeBrincat's agent and it's just, people trying to save face a little bit. But at the same time, like, Steve Warren is pretty adamant here that this is coming from a good source close to the DeBrincat family. And I don't know if that's Jeff Jackson, his agent, or if that, I don't think it is. It could be, but I just feel like Warren being so adamant about it, like, Garriock has outright said DeBrincat does not want to stay in Canada. That's quote unquote, that came from his article, which basically tells you he's done. But then Warren comes out with this conflicting report of he's open to it. Like, he likes
it in Ottawa, in like literally, can't get any more black and white than that.
And the big thing is that his quotes say like he's open to staying, but the term has to be right and the money has to be right. So that's why last night, because I never really thought of this as a money problem. Like, of course, money speaks. I know money is everything, and in Ottawa, like, you talk about the no tax states and everything, but and obviously DeBrincat has this family he's trying to raise, so maybe he's just trying to get the max value. But like, I never thought of it as a money thing because I thought it was more, okay, if he doesn't want to live in Canada, that makes sense because he's an American, he's never lived in Canada. I mean, I think that Ottawa is a good place to raise a family, but whatever, it's a personal decision, it's a family decision. You can't really knock a guy for that, I wouldn't say. If it's a money thing though, and it's like, I know you want to get the max value for you as a player, but coming off a down year and you're only here in Ottawa, and I say down in quotations again, I still think he was pretty solid, but asking like, Ottawa, I'm sure would offer him at least $8 million. I'd say Dorion would probably be even fine with going up to 8.5. If DeBrincat's really saying like I'm only going to take $9 million for 8 years and that's no less, like I find that a little ridiculous personally. Just because I think especially Jesper Bratt just signed for $7.85 million in New Jersey, and he is a very similar player to DeBrincat in the way that he impacts the game. So And even DeBrincat has referenced Caulfield to his contract, and I know he's talking term, but like Caulfield also signed for I think 7.85 million. So that's a pretty good number for DeBrincat as well. And if it is really a money thing, then I'm a little more sour with DeBrincat's camp, because you can try and save face and say you like it in Ottawa, but if it is a money thing and that comes out that he wouldn't extend because Ottawa didn't want to offer him, 9 million, which I'm sure Pierre would somehow sneak out if that is the case, that would be pretty bitter on my end, just because I think it's kind of silly. Whereas the Canada thing is a little more understandable. So whatever it is, it certainly seems like we're leaning towards a trade here. I mean, I'd be surprised at this point if he extends long term, just because Bruce is typically pretty credible with these things, like you said. I mean, he's usually getting his info right from the organization, which is unfortunate because it's silly to see them negotiate through the media like this. But I would say it's probable that he gets traded at this point, which sucks because we've talked about it. I mean, I just think that there are very limited situations in which Ottawa gets better without Alex DeBrincat on their roster. So, of course, the core will take another step. Maybe they get a couple guys from Belleville who step up and the team like finishes with more points than last season, but I still think overall it's going to be a bit of an uphill battle losing a player of DeBrincat's caliber. And I think, I don't know, I mean, looking at their lineup on paper, their forward group, it's going to be really hard to fill that second line spot where DeBrincat is. And yes, they have a lot of other good forwards, but like we're talking now where you're going to have to put probably a third line guy in that second line spot. Like if you sign a Connor Brown or somebody who's like a 40 or 50 point guy at most, but he's playing on the second line, not ideal. We'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are maybe on a potential trade, but for me, it is disappointing and it is kind of a damper to start the summer.
It is. And look, the thing that I think everyone has to remember is, first of all, I don't buy this Canada stuff. I don't think that's true at all. I was skeptical about it when I read it, because like I know it's a big deal, different country and everything, but like it wasn't that bad. This guy grew up in Michigan. Like it's not like he grew up down south or anything. Like he's from pretty much Canada. Michigan is right. I think Ottawa might be more south than parts of Michigan, to be honest. So anyway, like what I want everyone to know, and we need to always remember when we're going through this, if a trade happens or whatever, everyone's got their price. Like everyone does. That's DeBrincat. That's his camp. That's Dorion and the Sens. I keep going back to Dorion's interview. It was from May 31st, I think, with Locked On. And he said, we would love to extend him, but the price has to be right. And that's where I think I'm going to go back to what you were saying. Like, is 8.5 as high as they're going to go? And yeah, like it's frustrating, obviously, if DeBrincat's going to want to squeeze more out of them, blah, blah, blah. But it's his right. And he's got the right to do that. He can probably get 9 somewhere. And he knows that. So that's why he's going to not take a discount. He's probably looking at Tim Stützle being like, why did this kid sign before he had a career high season? He just screwed everyone in this organization for getting big paydays or whatever. Like, and then obviously it's not Stützle's fault, but it's like, if you're DeBrincat, why would you look at that and be like, why would I do the same thing? I want to cash in. So pay me what I think I'm going to be worth next season or next summer when I can get on the market, or I'm not going to sign this summer. So like that's part of it too. And here's an angle that I hadn't really considered. Like, let's say they do pony up and pay him, which I don't think will happen. Like you said, I think if DeBrincat's hard on getting 9, let's say, that's a tough pill to swallow. Although they can make it work, they can do it. And next season is really the only problem, because dead cap comes off after next summer, and the cap is going up. So you're going to have a lot of wiggle room for guys like Sanderson to add depth and blah, blah, blah. Like there's going to be a lot of options after 2024, so next summer. So it's tough because you're I don't want to say we have tunnel vision for next season, because you have to focus on next year, but you can sign him to 9 million for next season. You just have to bank on him, Batherson, and probably Pinto and Norris contributing heavily, like way more than they were at 5-on-5, because we've talked about it. Yeah, you gotta make the depth better. But here's a question for you: would you rather bet on Alex DeBrincat or bet on the free agent market, or bet on another trade to shore up your 5-on-5 scoring? Like DeBrincat alone can make up 10, 15 goals at even strength, no problem. Batherson, the same thing. Like if these guys pick it up, so I'm kind of talking myself into 9 million here, but like I'm just kind of spitballing. Like if it's pricey and it's going to be expensive, but I don't know, man. Like I would rather spend 9 million on Alex DeBrincat than 4.5 on two other guys who are kind of maybe going to supplement that and be good depth options. Like it's tough, and it's a question that the Sens have to answer, and it seems like they might have already. But I just hate this spin, like he doesn't want to stay in Canada. Like I don't like that at all. It doesn't seem true to me. It doesn't seem true. And I'm trusting Warren on this because he has a source and he's mentioning a source, whereas Garriock is not saying sources are telling me that he doesn't want to stay in Canada. It just seems like speculation on that end. It's just because he wants more money, which again, with new ownership, hopefully that is a thing of the past where players wanting a lot of money is not a bad thing. It should be a good thing that they want to get paid here. So I can throw this thing you got here in the screen share, and then you could take it away. I don't really know what you got going here.
Yeah, this is a spontaneous pull. But yeah, this is from my article here. It's a free article on everydaysens.com. And it's a salary cap projection that I did. So it's kind of hard to see on YouTube, but like it just shows that you can sign. I'll try and zoom in here. I haven't actually used this feature before, so we're gonna see what happens. It shows that you can sign DeBrincat for. I put him at 8.5 million. Again, if he wants 9, like I've been saying this for a long time that although I believe that 9, I even think that 8.5 might be a bit of an overpay based on what the other players are signed for. Like people don't want to pay him more than Stützle and Tkachuk. But to me, like you said, I'd rather just pay him. Like I don't even care if you overpay him a little bit based on the market. I'd rather do that and keep him than have to find replacements because you're not going to find another DeBrincat on the market. You're going to sign 2 probably ideally third line players and hope that they can supplement what he did. And then your lineup just to me looks worse. So basically what I did in this article, for the people on YouTube, you can see it. If not, I put everybody's salary in, and it's a 3-year projection from now. So the cap is expected to be around 92 million. I've got DeBrincat at 8.5, Giroux at that point, I put him at like 2 million. And these numbers will vary in reality, but I assume they'll be around this point. Pinto at 3, Greg at 2.5. Your third line is made up of 3 million in total. Sign Sanderson for 8 million and Chychrun for 8 million, who I don't even know if they'll both take that much. They might even be willing to sign for less. I'm not positive, but the whole point of this piece, and I'll scroll down a little bit, I've got a goalie at 4 million. The whole point is to show that lineup comes out to around 90 million. And at that point in 3 years from now, that's under the cap. And of course, you want some wiggle room with that, and potentially you can get it if the numbers are a little bit less. I tried to be fairly reasonable and realistic with it. But anyways, we'll leave that article at that. You can go check it out, read the whole thing. It's just to show that you can keep the entire core for you know the price of DeBrincat. Like you don't lose Jacob Chychrun if you sign DeBrincat for 8.5 million. You can still sign Chychrun, you can still sign Sanderson. It just comes down to DeBrincat's decision, and I don't know. I agree with you. The Canada thing seems awfully bizarre, and I've tried to kind of understand it just because if you look at it, maybe it's just a personal thing. Maybe his wife doesn't like it here. Maybe she doesn't have any friends. I don't know. Like I'm just throwing things out there because I don't really understand what is wrong with living in Canada or raising your child in a safe place like Ottawa compared to some other places. And I looked up where DeBrincat's from, which is Farmington Hills in Michigan, and it's only an 8-hour drive from here, which is not far. Like it's basically the same climate, like it's the same type of region, right? The same area. So I'm not really understanding that. I guess people have their own preferences, and that is what it is. But if it is a money thing, that kind of sucks. And if DeBrincat is kind of valuing himself at 9+ million and will not take anything less than that, like I said, is disappointing. Because we looked at some trade options and the teams that are listed, and my quote from one of the last pods was I almost wouldn't want to trade him for anything other than UC Saros. And anything else kind of feels like a lost trade just because he's an elite player to me. He's a 40 goal scorer and around an 80-point player. And I consider this year a down year where he had 27 goals and 66 points. So if you're trading him for, the assets you spent on him, or even probably less, to me that's disappointing. And I think Craig Button talked about this, and I can pull this tweet up too, but he talked about Detroit being an awesome fit for the Sens, and like, oh, they should definitely ask Detroit and trade him there. And I just don't really understand that because Detroit is a division rival. And I know DeBrincat is from Detroit. He grew up cheering for the Red Wings. That's great and all. We all love that hometown story. Well, not the Atlantic Division opponents, because like Ottawa is on the same window as Detroit pretty much. They're basically around the same timeline. So we're going to trade them a 40-goal scorer, a 25-year-old 40-goal scorer who will probably sign for 8 years to a rival for picks and prospects. It's like, why would we do that? That makes zero sense to me. I know you can flip picks. I know you can, and they might have to do that because I don't know if they're going to find, a replacement in a trade. But if you acquire picks and prospects and you flip them, like, you're still banking on flipping them. Like, you have to do that. And that's easier said than done. Like, I'd love to trade DeBrincat for a first round pick and a second round pick and a prospect and then flip those assets for Travis Konechny in Philadelphia. That would be awesome. But, like, that's so much easier said than done. Like, is that actually feasible? I don't know. You'd have to have something in place beforehand because you're taking a pretty big risk if you're trading DeBrincat for futures and then not able to flip it, right? Like, that would be a huge loss. So, are you still open to the idea of a 1-year deal? Because I know you've been all over that. Like, I'd love to know.
Yep.
I don't know if
Yep.
arbitration will actually play it through, but the 1-year deal option, it to me is pretty reasonable, even though most people are against it.
Yeah, I'm all over it. I'm all over it. Like you said, if I think this also has been reported. It's like if the Sens don't get a deal they're in love with, they're not going to do it, and they'll just ride a year and figure it out from there. And I don't mind that. And I had a bit of a thread the other day. It might have been yesterday. On DeBrincat and just the whole scenario and just my thoughts. And it was about taking him back on a 1-year deal. And if you're Dorion, like, just kick the can down the road. There's a decent chance, unfortunately for him, that he's not the GM in a year. So kick the can down the road. Get him to arbitration. Let the other GM deal with it. Like, see the fruits of your labor this season for the most part, and let the new guy deal with a new DeBrincat or like a UFA DeBrincat or a deadline. Like, I don't know.
So what if you trade him at the deadline? If they have to trade him at the deadline, would you trade him then? If Ottawa's in a playoff spot, would you trade him?
No,
Would you be fine with that? You just keep him?
No, I would gamble because look, like maybe if you can make like a swap at the deadline or something, we can get a guy with a bit more term. I just don't see like it really, I mean, that's hard to answer. It really depends on where the team is at. If they're battling for a wild card spot, I might have to bite the bullet and just say, you know what, sorry, Alex. Like, but the other thing is they're gonna have their first round pick next year for all we know. They're not gonna make a big trade, I don't think, to get rid of it. So they're gonna be good on assets in that regard. But anyway, like, yeah, I just the thing with the money is like I'm kind of warming up to the idea of just paying him, and just paying the man because we both know he's gonna bounce back next year. He's gonna score 40. He's gonna play all 82 games probably because he always does, which is so valuable, I think. Especially on the Sens. Like, you talk about all these injuries that we get, and this guy has missed, I think in the last 5 years, he's missed 4 games, and they were because he had COVID, like, or he was in the protocol. I don't even know if he had it. But he's missed 5 games in 5 years or 4 games in 5 years. It's insane to me, for a smaller player. So that's another thing, like with the small angle and how it wouldn't work in the playoffs. This guy's a warrior. He plays through everything. So anyway, I'm warming up to the idea of paying him because if you look at Toronto, and I'm not praising their model. It's been a disaster in terms of their contracts, but if it's all on the players. Like, if they make that much money, it is now on them to show up and be worth that amount. Like, Kachuk and Stützle have done it. Giroux obviously has done it. Like, Batherson's been worth more than his contract for the last 2 seasons. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to sign and then prove that you're worth it plus. And I think putting the onus on DeBrincat is good. And like, I'd be willing to do it. Again, it'd be pain for next season. You wouldn't be able to shore up your depth. You'd have to roll in with a weaker goaltending core than you'd like. But again, like, we keep not talking about it because we don't need to, but this decor is set. Like, and look at Vegas. And I'm not comparing the two decors, but that's how you win championships. That's how you win hockey games in this league. You got to build from the back end and defend. And I think the way the Sens are set up now, we haven't seen them at full strength yet. And I think that's why I've been on this train too. Like, they need to get better depth, blah, blah, blah. Like, you got to find some value pieces. Yeah. Like, but the 5-on-5 scoring has to come from the top guys first too, because they're also going to be playing the same amount of 5-on-5 minutes. And I'm willing to bank on Alex DeBrincat bouncing back at 5-on-5 and having more than 12 even strength goals. Like, or however many he had. Like, that to me is a good bet. And if the player is using the leverage he has and being like, I can't stay, I'm not going to stay for 8 million because I can get 9 somewhere else where it's warmer and I get more money anyway. So that's the situation they're in right now. I'm so indifferent. If they make a trade, it'll be stuff to talk about. And if they sign him, we can break all that down. But like you said, and you broke down that cap thing, like it's so doable. They can do it, and it's not that big of a it's not a bad thing if they give him 9. And we can debate all we want if he's worth it or not. What he gave us last season, he's probably not. He's probably not worth 9 a year. But the track record and the position he'll play on the team, the depth he provides them. Like I'm going on a tangent here, but depth is having a lot of good players. It's having a lot of good players who can slot in anywhere. If you have Alex DeBrincat on your second line, that's elite. He is a top line player on any team, but you've got him on your second line because you're a deep team. We shouldn't be criticizing him for being the fourth best forward. We should be praising how deep this team is with him as their fourth best forward. Maybe fifth when Josh Norris is back. Like that's huge. And I would pay him. I'm not gonna say what he wants. If he's asking for 9.5, 10 a year, pack your bags, Alex. You're gone. But if it's 9, which is what the qualifying offer is, or if it's in that vicinity, you might just have to bite the bullet. And I don't get the sense anyway that Dorion's hands are tied with the ownership thing that we talked about. Doesn't sound like it. So I'm sure he's okay handing out a $60 million ticket to someone. Yeah, like that's. And I also mentioned, you had Pinto there at what, 2 or 3 million
Pinto was at 3.
Yeah, so that could be in 3 years. I don't know what he's like. I'm imagining he'll sign a 1 or a 2 year deal, honestly, this summer. But like we've mentioned this before, like you can't go to DeBrincat and be like, hey, Pinto's asking for 3, so we can't give you 9. You start with the big dog, and you start with Alex DeBrincat, and then you go from there and you go to Brandstrom and you go to Pinto and be like, look, we have $5.5 million to split between the two of you. This is what we can give you. That's how it's going to work, and that's how it is working. I guarantee they've had maybe preliminary talks so far with those two players. You start with the big dog, work from there. I don't buy that a trade is the only way out of this. And if the Sens see it that way, then they didn't budget for making this trade, and that's just the facts.
Well, I don't know why, if it is money, I don't know why they would have acquired him thinking that they could, not have to spend $8 to $9 million on the guy. And even, I don't even think that 8 to 9 is that big of a difference. Yes, I know they're paid more, or he'd be paid more than Stützle and Tkachuk, but are we really going to let a 40-goal scorer leave the team that is entering their contention window because we don't want to spend an extra $1 million on him per season? Because if it was $8 million, people would be very happy with that deal. If it was $9 million, people would be outraged by the deal. So I just don't, to me, like that $1 million, and I know they're going to be a cap strap team, but that $1 million for Alex DeBrincat, to me, it's not a big deal. Like, that's not a huge thing annually. Like, whatever, just do it. I don't care. It's $1 million extra dollars. It's not a big deal. Like, it's fine.
Exactly. And that goes to my depth thing. Look, let's say you give him 8 and you get him. Like, yeah, we squeezed him. We got it. What's that 1 million doing? Like, what are you doing with that extra million, especially next season? Exactly. Like that's an entry level deal, which I know we've mentioned how valuable those are, like the 800, 700K a year. But that 1 million, I absolutely guarantee that will be dished out to Brandstrom and Pinto. You're just giving them raises. Like that's how it works. And we've broken down how much cap space they have. I believe it's 15, 17 million around there. You give DeBrincat 9, that's 6 million to play with. Like he's the domino. And I really highly doubt that the price he's asking for is enough for Dorion to be telling Bruce Garriock he doesn't play or he doesn't want to play in Canada. I don't buy that for a second.
No, neither do I. And I mean, if that is the case for whatever reason, then fine, whatever. But if he leaves, if he gets traded, and it ultimately is because of money, like if he got traded to another Canadian team, which won't happen, but if that happened and he signed there, it's like, okay, we're all going to be mad at Pierre Dorion now because, of course, like you just weren't willing to offer him the contract. And if it is like, again, if it is like an 8, because I firmly believe Dorion would offer him $8 million a year. Like there's no way you acquired DeBrincat not thinking you'd have to pay him at least $8 million a year. So even $9 million, I'd be surprised if they were really drawing the line before $9 million. If that is the case, and maybe DeBrincat's just being unreasonable and asking for, well, I could go to a no tax state, so I want 10 million in Ottawa or something. Maybe that's the case. I doubt it. Like again, this is a great spot for his career. Like if he truly likes it here, that is huge because he can like it here. That's fine, but the Sens are built to win. Like they are built to be a champion and one of the league's premier teams over the next 8 years at least. So for a 25-year-old DeBrincat, like how do you not see that and want to stay? I know he talked about not fitting in their plans or whatever, but it's like you do. Like, you're not going to be the best player on the team, but you shouldn't be. Like, if you're the best player on your team wherever you go, that's not a very good team. Like, of course, DeBrincat's a great player, but you want to have multiple players who are around that level. Like, you want to have that star power. So, for me, I mean, DeBrincat, like, this is the best spot for him, and I just don't understand the whole not wanting to stay in Canada thing, because it's a like, this is the best spot for his career, but it's also a good living spot. Like, I mean, all of the players love living here. Not only that, but Josh Norris is also from Michigan, and he seems to be content with signing an 8-year deal here. Brady Tkachuk is from the U.S., and he was fine signing an 8-year deal. Tim is from Europe, and he's fine signing like, these guys. Ottawa actually has a very limited Canadian core. Like, Batherson and, I guess, Giroux, he's not really part of the core just because he's older. But, like, Batherson is the only real long-term guy who... Shabbat, sorry, yeah, Shabbat, I guess, as well. But, like, compared to other teams, they actually have a very limited Canadian group. Like, they're pretty American-based, and people have been worried about that. But so far, I mean, the American guys seem to be pretty, they love it in Ottawa. Like, they were more than willing to sign 8-year deals. So it's like, maybe DeBrincat's just a family thing, but I just don't really understand the whole moving away thing. Like, it's just, this is a great spot for you on and off the ice. I mean, from our perspective anyway.
Yeah, and if let's say DeBrincat's asking for 10 or 9.5 to stay in Ottawa, and that's what he's saying. He's like, look, I'll stay here, but you got to give me this. And these are the teams I want. Maybe then I can understand, like, he's not explicitly saying it, but he's like, to stay in this market and in this country, you have to give me this amount. Like, okay, I can maybe see that. But at the same time, you made the trade for him. You knew what the price tag was. You knew what the qualifying offer was. Everyone did. And I've defended Dorion about this specific transaction throughout this last month, being like, look, there's no way that he can control if a guy wants to stay in a city or not, blah, blah, blah. And I've gone back and forth with people about that. But now I'm kind of pivoting because of what we're reading. If DeBrincat wants, like, if he likes it in Ottawa, which is what we have, then it's on Dorion now. Like, just have a good negotiation. And again, I trust him in negotiations. He's been great with the other contracts. This is a different beast, though. This is a guy who is 1 year away from UFA, and we know that historically, Pierre Dorion has not done well with those. And it probably was because of Eugene Melnyk, which, by the way, he did not seem shy to mention the other day. Which is whatever. Like, I know why he's doing it now, but anyway, seeing Mark Stone lift the cup after those comments is tough. But yeah, we'll get into that in just a second here before we wrap up. But for DeBrincat, I didn't even know what I was expecting when we came into this episode. I've changed my attitude a little bit more. I'm just like, pay the man. I don't care. Like I said, once you pay him, then I'm not going to try and hate on him, but the pressure cooker will just turn up to another level. If this guy's making 9 and he has the same season he just did, can you imagine? Like, he'll be, if he's a minus 35 but look, I'm just, the reason I don't buy this Canada thing is there was the coach narrative that he didn't like DJ Smith. That was put to bed. Like, it was pretty debunked. Like, there's so much that we don't know, and I would still be more surprised if a trade happens than I would be if he extends before the draft or whatever. Like,
really, that's bold. That is bold.
I would, but like, because like you mentioned, if they're trading at the draft, they're trading at the draft because they want picks. Like, that's the only reason the draft is a timeline. There's no other reason for it to be. You could trade them in August. You could trade them before the arbitration date, and it could still be a hockey deal for the Sens. Like, it doesn't make, maybe it's because they want free agency, they want to see what they can get, but an executive has said that this is a terrible free agent class. So I don't know. Do you have anything else on DeBrincat here quickly? Just I'm sure we're going to record again tomorrow for our Monday episode, so we'll maybe have more information, but we'll dive into some free agent targets in the event he's gone. But just your final thoughts here on the latest update in this development.
Yeah, well, an NHL executive did say it's a terrible free agent class, and I would agree. Like, there's just nobody who can really replace him. And I know people like Tyler Bertuzzi, but I think he's just going to get overpaid. Like, free agents are typically overpaid, and they rarely work out because of that. That's just how it goes. Like, it's hard to sign free agents, except for Claude Giroux, who is willing to come to Ottawa on a fairly affordable deal at his age. DeBrincat, like, I don't see anyone who can replace him unless you do acquire, like, a Travis Konechny, and even then I think it's a lot easier said than done. Like, teams don't just want to part with like 70-point second line players. It's just not something that most teams want to do unless you're going to give them a haul. And I still think the deal we got for DeBrincat was very affordable in itself. Like, I still think that was a great deal, first, second, and third round pick. But at this point, it just really is like, I hope you're right. I really do, because I think signing him and keeping this core together. And one other thing you talked about 5v5 scoring is Josh Norris still, I think, is being undervalued, because 2021, 2022, that season before he, like, obviously was hurt this year, but the season before this one, he led the Sens with 16 goals at 5v5, which is pretty important. Like, he coming back is going to be a massive contributor. And then DeBrincat will probably also increase from his number of 12 this past season. So I think they'd be one of the top teams at 5v5 scoring if they have both players on there, right? Like, sure, the depth might not be as good as if they trade DeBrincat, but you have to prioritize your top players. Like, you have to prioritize keeping guys who are going to contribute that much. And I think DeBrincat and Norris being in the top 6 can make up for any lack of depth scoring. Like, I think Norris's injury was a big thing this past year. And I think, again, having Pinto on the third line improves the depth pretty significantly in itself, right? So, yeah, I think if there's an option to sign DeBrincat for $9 million, I'm still taking it. People can continue to call us crazy, but I'm still taking that, because I think it's just better to do that than to have to replace him or try to find two guys who can make up his point total or whatever it is. And I also don't think he's as bad of a defensive player as everybody seems to think either. I do not like plus minus at all. I am so tired of hearing about plus minus. I tweeted something. He actually set a lot of career highs in like expected things this year. And again, it was just a slew of, I don't want to say bad luck, but it was just inches, so many inches. And if he even scored 3 or 4 more goals, I don't think people have the same perspective. If he hit 30, I think people would honestly have a completely different outlook on his season, which is kind of insane. And I've always said too, like, if he was in Claude Giroux's position, and I know he was on the first power play and Giroux wasn't, but if he played with Stützle and Tkachuk this past year, I think DeBrincat would have had the same point total as Giroux did, except maybe even more, because I just think that is a huge deal. And that's not to make an excuse. I just think it has to be noted.
If he hit 3 more goals, he would have hit 30, and then that would have been 70 points. He's a 30-goal, 70-point guy. We're having a
And
much
that's
different
so much
discussion,
different
like you
than
said,
27 goals and 66 points.
with a career high in assists. Like, I don't know. If I'm DeBrincat, I'm saying that, and he's the kind of player too where you could be like, if I did, and I'm sure every player thinks that, but literally, if you watch his tape, he literally could have had 3, and it just, the bounces weren't there, or he just it rolled off his stick or whatever. Like, the amount of posts that guy hit in November was crazy. It was nuts.
He has a great argument, though. He has a great argument because of the expected goals to goals ratio. Like, every other year of his career, right? It's, yeah.
If I'm in arbitration and I'm DeBrincat and then the Sens throw that at me, I'd be like, you use the exact same argument to keep DJ Smith in November. And I have it in the pudding. I have the quote. I can pull it for you. So I'm just arguing for DeBrincat now. So I hope Jeff Jackson's listening to this. He can just use our clip and throw it in the negotiations, because we just vouched for DeBrincat to get $9 million.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And I think it's totally worth it. I think, like I said, yeah, it's bold, but we both agree now that we would pay him. Basically, we would overpay him a little bit, because I don't think $1 million should be considered a massive difference. Like, if you're fine with paying him 8, you should be fine with paying him 9. 10 is a jump. I wouldn't do 10, but 9, we're talking about like an Austin Watson caliber player being signed here for $1 million a year. It's just, I'd rather just pay DeBrincat, and I think you can keep maybe a Shane Pinto maxes himself out of Ottawa in like when he's 25 years old or something, but I mean, I'd still rather keep DeBrincat. Like, you can find other third line centers. You can't really find another 70 to 80 point 40 goal scorer. Like, it's just, you have to kind of recognize that. So yeah, we can move off to DeBrincat now. I'm sure we'll be talking about him again soon, whether it's a trade or an extension or whatever happens. They've got Arb in August, I guess, early August. So we'll be back to him. But yeah, we can move on to our final little thing here and then wrap up.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly ask you, how did it feel watching Mark Stone lift the Stanley Cup on Tuesday? Like, what was your immediate reaction?
I liked it. Like we talked about, like, I'm happy for Stone. I think there was a lot of stuff that came out about that final, though, about like Matt Tkachuk has like a fractured sternum or something, and Brady had to help him get dressed in the morning, and he was still playing. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous. I don't know what I think about the medical situation there, but yeah, watching Stone lift the cup was good. You know, I said, and it's easy to say, like, Stone should have been a Senator for life, and I would agree in the sense that the whole Melnick thing and kind of negating a potential 8-year deal was annoying, but at the same time, I just saw a report the other day, or maybe even yesterday, that said Stone is probably still going to be in and out of the lineup for the rest of his career because of injuries. Like, he's got serious back issues, and he has had that for a long time. And I mean, if you're missing a guy of his caliber, but you're paying him, and obviously there's LTIR, but if you're paying him that much money, I don't know what does he make, 9.5 or something? Yeah, 9.5. So I don't know if you're missing a guy like him for even half the season, every season for his career of that deal. Like that's a pretty big deal. Like that's a huge guy to miss. So um, I'm sure Vegas doesn't care because they won a cup, and ultimately, if you win one cup in your contention window, that's a success. Like if Ottawa wins one cup in the next 10 years, I think we have to consider that a success because it's just such a hard league to win, right? So, I loved watching it though. I think Stone deserves it. He's a great guy. Like you can go back to his days in Ottawa and his development, and he's someone you can easily cheer for. So, congrats to him. And although we would have liked to see it in Ottawa, I think they are. I wouldn't say they're better for it because the deal didn't work out particularly well so far, but I think just based on his injuries and stuff, it kind of worked out for both sides.
Yeah, it was awesome to see. Nothing to report here. I actually I don't think I saw many people being bitter about it. He was one of those guys, right? I think honestly, if Carlson had won it, I would imagine there would probably be some people who are a little bit bitter. But Mark Stone completely deserving. A hat trick in the clinching game is just right up his alley. It was awesome to see, even though it was 9-3. He opened the scoring with that great shorthanded goal, and like that was special. It was special to see, and another source of motivation for Brady Tkachuk going into next year. Obviously, his mentor in his rookie year, they lived together, best friends, and I think he'll be in his wedding party later this summer. So all that said, we had a lot to talk about. We got a new owner. Finally, Michael Andlauer is taking over the team eventually, but he is the preferred bidder. He's signed the papers with the Ottawa Senators. Alex DeBrincat needs a new contract, or he might get traded. We'll see. And again, like we mentioned, we're going to record tomorrow night, so probably not many new developments, but we're going to just do some stuff that we put out on Twitter and on the Instagram page, like just what we should talk about. And if you're looking for that right now, we'll do that for Monday's episode. We will try and address some of those just after all these big headlines. So that's been episode 16. Again, thank you everyone for 400 subscribers on YouTube. That's awesome. If you aren't subscribed, click the subscribe button and hit like. Subscribe to everydaysens.com to find some written content and analysis about everything. Brennan mentioned that free article he's got up now, projecting the salary cap or it was out a while ago, but projecting the salary cap for going forward in the next few seasons. So thank you everyone for stopping by, and we'll see you guys on Monday.